it just makes me think, even just as a parent, like, what are the things that my children are good at? Like, what do I already see as some gifts, some inclinations, or some talents that they might have? Like for one, my daughter talks. She can talk. She can talk.
And she knows her word, too.
And she knows her word. So I was like, well, how about you go and preach this word? And so she took a little Bible and was just like, Mommy, I'm going to go to co-op. And I'm going to take my Bible and I'm going to go tell my friends about Jesus. I said, there we go. Use all that talking for the Lord's glory. Hey, and welcome to the Vibes Daily Podcast. You have joined us during our series entitled Devoted, where we are going through the entire Bible from cover to cover, from Genesis to Revelations. You have joined us on day 291. We are here in the book of Matthew, and I mean, we by my mom again. Hi, Mom.
Hey, I am really enjoying this week. This is great.
Awesome. Yes, we are in Matthew. We've been doing this all week, and today we have reached chapter 23, and we have watched Jesus go toe-to-toe with these Pharisees, Sadducees, these scribes, these priests. Like, he is going in, okay? And they have continued to bring people to challenge him. And so he is in the midst right now. We get to 23 of responding back now to the crowds and to his disciples after he's been questioned a few times and trying to be tricked and trapped in his words. And he is just going in on these scribes and these Pharisees and stuff. Yes.
All right.
Okay. Well, talk to me about it.
I mean, just, like I said, I love just to read the scripture, let it teach.
Yeah.
So, again, as you just introduced, he's speaking now to the crowds and his disciples. In verse 2, it says, the teachers of the religious law and the Pharisees are the official interpreters of the law of Moses.
Yes.
So, who are they? He says, so practice and obey whatever they tell you. He says, but don't follow their example.
Don't do what they do.
So they tell you what the word, they know the word, but they ain't following. I love that part of it.
Me too.
They crush people with unbearable religious demands and never lift a finger. And so again, he said, everything they do is for show.
Yep.
It's all a presentation of words, but not in action.
Yep.
And that's the worst type of person that, again, you should really follow. Someone that, they preaching the word, but how they living. And that's what we always would teach the youth.
Yeah.
To know the word, but how you living.
How you living. Yeah. Yeah. And it's so interesting because it was easy, I'm sure, for them to do that because they lived away from the people, right? Like the Pharisees and I don't know about so much the Pharisees, but the priests for sure, and the Levites, right? Like they had their own area where they lived, right? And they spent time in the temple, right?
Yes.
And so they weren't really living amongst the people much, and so it was probably a lot easier for them to get away with this type of lifestyle than if they were in the village. With the common people, or like I said, the Acts church, where you're supposed to be living together and dwelling together and doing life together, right? Where like community, right? Where they can say, do this, do that, and then go away and do whatever they wanted to.
Live like they wanted to live, but not what they were teaching. And putting on others, that's the part that, again, they were crushing the spirit of people.
Yes.
Instead of lifting up the people.
Yes. And so interesting that he said that they were doing all this, like you mentioned, just to be greeted in the marketplaces, though. They love that spotlight. They love to walk around, with their robes on
with
and
their box with the law on it, so people could see that they knew the word.
Exactly, and to be called rabbi by people. And Jesus was the opposite, though.
Just the opposite.
Because he was humble. He was like, actually, he would do stuff and tell people, don't tell them I did it.
Yeah.
Or don't tell them, I'm the Messiah. Don't tell anybody that I'm the Messiah, right? Totally opposite. But I think it was also interesting that this verse never really stuck out to me before. Verse 9 says, don't call anyone on earth your father, because you have one Father who is in heaven. This was so interesting to me, especially because so much today, and I'm not saying this is wrong, I'm not sure, but it just made me think about this. I was like, when have I called somebody other than my biological dad my father, right?
Yeah.
When else? But I recall now, like, saying stuff like spiritual father, your spiritual mother, right? And I was like, I wonder what the Lord feels about that. Like, in reading this now, I'm not claiming anything, but I'm just saying it just made me think about this. Like, so much it is probably very easy to go to someone earthly, to be your spiritual father or covering or whatever, right? When God's like, come straight to me. Like, I am your father. Like, come to me. Like, it's great to have mentors. He says the wise have mentors, right? Or and that iron sharpens iron. It's good to have people, neck and neck with you. But in terms of like who you are under, in terms of like following, like, it's, the Lord wants this personal relationship with all of us.
Right. He does. Yes.
So that just jumped out to me, though. But he continues to call them hypocrites and tells them, that they have shut the kingdom of heaven on people's faces, right? That they are hindering people from even getting to God, right? He calls them blind guides, and as we go on, he just continues to go on just about how they have more so just conducted themselves against the people. Yeah. So any other thoughts on here?
Just this whole chapter 23, I just love the fact that, again, it starts out in, my King James Version says, woe unto you.
Well,
you Pharisees and Sadducees. And, you see it in multiple verses throughout this whole thing. And he really just calls them out on who they are, so that the people understood in that day and time that they weren't exactly all that they were cracked up to be.
Yeah.
Or that they were going to be judged for what they did. That's why he said in my NLT, it says, what sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites, he calls them in multiple scriptures, 23, 25, 27, there's several of them. But I just love the fact that he's so bold.
He is.
When he came. And he didn't, and even though he was very humble, he came with authority.
He did.
And I love that about our Lord.
Yeah.
He came with authority, and he called them out.
He did. And it's so interesting in terms of that calling them out. In verse 20 through like 23, 24, he talks about how there's very nitpick about like how you're going to take this oath, right? If you take it by the altar, where you're taking the oath by the temple, like, you take one takes it by heaven, it's thrown. Like, they have all these like different nuances on their verbiage of when you're taking the oath, whether you're going to say that you take it by this thing or that thing. And he's kind of like, woe to you, because you guys are doing all these things, but you are neglecting the things that really matter, right? Like, you over here neglecting the important things of the matter, which is verse 23, which is justice and mercy and faithfulness, right? Like, you're giving a tenth with all these special elaborate mints and dill and cumin, and you're worried about all these different things. But here, you're neglecting the things that you're supposed to be paying attention to.
Right.
Right?
Right. More important things. blind guides.
Blind guides, blind people, blind guides. He keeps on calling them blind, which very much parallels what the prophets were saying, that at some point the Lord was going to shut the eyes of the people and they would be blind, and he was going to close up their ears and they would be deaf, and that they weren't going to hear from the Lord, right?
Yep, very prophetic.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, that's what I got out of that whole chapter 23. He just calls them out. And then in 37, he grieves over Jerusalem because he says, the city that kills the prophets and stone God's messengers.
Yeah.
You know, so sad. And here was the, the kingdom, the temple and everything was there in Jerusalem. But yet they were the ones where they were killing the prophets and those that were trying to spread the word. And it was just sad that Jesus had to come and even, in Jerusalem, let them know that they were not following what God had created the temple in Jerusalem to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's hard to see that happening, but then again, it's heartbreaking to know that it's all still happening, right?
Yeah. It's still happening.
It's all
today.
still
'Cause,
happening.
I mean, you look at Israel today and Jerusalem and all the killing that's going on today. Again. And, earlier we were talking about signs, and we'll see that a little bit later too. But the signs that they were looking for, we're living a lot of that today.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
think we'll see that in the next chapter, I believe.
Yeah. And just before we move on to the next one, I know we gotta get to it, but I think it was interesting that Jesus himself shouted out the prophet Zechariah, right? We have his book in our Bible, right? Zechariah comes up before Haggai. No, Zephaniah. Haggai. Zechariah comes after Haggai, right before Malachi. And but yeah, just it mentions just how they murdered him, right? That they murdered him between the sanctuary and the altar.
Oh yeah.
And we have his book though, written here, and we didn't really know how his story ended, but here it kind of gives us a snippet from Jesus' own words on that he was murdered by the religious leaders.
Yeah. Up in 34 and 35.
Yeah. So on to chapter 24, when he is just going to predict that the temple is going to be destroyed, and we have some more predictions happening. Hold on. Let me get this. Yes, we have some more predictions happening with signs at the end of the age, like you were talking about, and persecutions that was going to happen. And I mean, he talks a lot here, right?
Yeah.
Anything that jumps off initially?
Again, just the disciples were wanting to know, tell us, when is all this going to happen? What signs will signal your return and the end of the world? And as you read through the rest of this whole chapter and some of the different things that are going on, we actually can kind of see some of that going on today.
Yeah.
And how many generations, especially with the wars and things over the centuries that have come and gone, have people been waiting and thinking, okay, the Lord's coming back any moment now. And I love that as I read it, because it keeps us in a posture of, it could be any day.
Yeah.
So be ready.
Be ready.
Because only God knows. And a lot of these signs that we read could potentially be going on. I think almost every generation at some point.
Yeah, it feels like it's today.
It's today.
It could be right now.
It could be tomorrow.
Yeah.
I mean, and thank God we have a God who's patient. But I think a lot of that even also was because there's so many countries and nations of people who had not heard of the word.
Yeah.
But now today, with technology the way it is and how the gospel is getting out to everyone, it's a lot.
It is.
It is a lot of people that now the word's out there. So of course we're closer today than we were in Jesus's time.
Yeah.
And these things were happening, but again, we definitely have to be ready. Yeah, so you know what I really liked was and was enlightening is verse 26,
Mm-hmm.
where it says, so if someone tells you, look, the Messiah is out in the desert,
Mm-hmm.
don't bother to go and look, he tells them.
Don't go.
Or, look, he's hiding here. Don't believe it.
Yeah.
So again, there are going to be people, and again, many false prophets that are going to be telling people, again, you can find him here. He's going to be there. But I love verse 36 where it says, however, no one knows the day or hour when these things will happen.
Yeah.
Not even the angels in heaven or the Son himself.
Yeah.
Only the Father knows.
Only the Father knows.
So we just got to be ready.
That part. That's exactly what I was about to say.
Just got to be ready.
That's like literally, we just have no clue when. So like our only thing that we can do is just be ready.
Yeah, and
Ready.
in that just means living as if whatever you're doing, whether it be in the day or in the night, God sees it all. And we need to be living a life that's pleasing to God
Mm-hmm.
in everything that we do. And when we know better, we need to do better.
Yeah.
So just like in James tells us to know something is a sin and not do it, then that's sin to you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so we have to live a sinless life to the extent that, we're able to, again, follow what Jesus did
Mm-hmm.
and live a life that's pleasing to God.
Yeah.
And everybody's walk is different.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just need to be in a personal relationship and let the Holy Spirit convict me of what it is that I'm doing that's not pleasing to God.
Yeah.
My walk's not your walk.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then just also knowing that, like you said, that the standard is, we have this Bible now. So like the standard is clear,
Yes.
right? Like where we are as Christians and how to follow Jesus, like it's clear. Like you said, the things you struggle with, I might not struggle with, right?
Mhm.
The things I struggle with, you might not. But what God and Jesus expects of us is really clear. And it is like one of those things where it's like, okay, let's read the word to figure out where we're supposed to be
Mhm.
and where we're supposed to live, like how we're supposed to live and where we're supposed to stand. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, so I think this is a good segue in terms of like being ready as these next couple parables
Mm-hmm.
and the next things that Jesus is saying here is more so along the lines of that be ready. Like
Yeah.
going into chapter 25, he starts with this parable of the 10 virgins, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where like they are not ready with their oil
Right.
and their lamps, and when they are waiting on the groom to come,
Mm-hmm.
they go out to buy some oil and he comes,
And he shows up.
and they're not ready and they're not allowed to even go inside because the door is shut by the time they come back.
Right.
And so it's like when you see that Jesus is coming back, like it's gonna be too late. It's gonna be too late by the time you see that sign.
Yep. And verse 13 in chapter 25 says, so you too must keep watch,
Mm-hmm.
for you do not know the day or hour of
Exactly.
my return.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we have this parable of the talents here,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like the Lord has entrusted us with stuff, right?
Right.
And how are we stewarding that while we're here? And when he
Yeah.
comes back, is he going to be pleased with us or not? What were your thoughts on this parable?
Well, the thing that really, again, I've read this so many different times and even have taught it, but it's more about he gave based on their ability.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So again, he entrusted 10 talents to one, 5 to another, and then 2 was it, and then to the one that he had given only 2, he didn't do anything with it.
Mm-hmm.
So God gives us abilities and gifts.
Yeah.
Are we using them?
Are we using them? Yeah. Yeah.
Because he don't give it to us just to hoard and say I got it.
Mm-hmm.
It's to be used for the building of his kingdom.
Yeah.
It's for kingdom building. And so again, I love the way that it just lets us know how are we stewarding whatever it is that God has entrusted to us. And for some, he's given a lot more than others.
Yeah.
And then we shouldn't be trying to compare ourselves, because what you can do and what he's entrusted you with, he hasn't entrusted that to me.
Yeah.
But he's given me something else. So how am I stewarding that he's entrusted me with?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's really, it is good. I love that you brought out the point that he gave them talents or money just to pay depending on their own ability, right? That was on verse 15, right? Depending on each one's ability. And then he leaves, right? And there's that trust factor. Like, I'm not even going to hover around you.
Right.
I'm not going to hover. I'm not going to micromanage. Like, I'm going to give you it. I'm going to give you some instruction, and I'm going to go. And I'm going to trust that you're doing the things that you're supposed to be doing. And so I do love that. And like you said, it just makes me think, even just as a parent, like, what are the things that my children are good at? Like, what do I already see as some gifts, some inclinations, or some talents that they might have? Like, what is he giving them, and how can I help them figure out how to give God glory through that, right? Like, for one, my daughter talks. She can talk. She can talk.
And she knows her word, too.
And she knows her word. So I was like, well, how about you go and preach this word? And so she took a little Bible and was just like, Mommy, I'm going to go to co-op, and I'm going to take my Bible, and I'm going to go tell my friends about Jesus. Anyone who doesn't know about Jesus, I'm going to go tell them about Jesus. I said, there we go. Use all that talking for the Lord's glory.
And did she do a good job?
She did. She took her Bible. She did. She took it to school, or to co-op, homeschool co-op. And so, so she did really good. So listen, I mean, just use these talents for God's glory. Somebody's going to be, Noah's going to be learning this ukulele. Just play Psalms of David.
For the Lord.
Play Psalms
like David played.
Psalms of David, Yeah.
But in the end, again, we just want to hear him say, well done. Verse 21, my good and faithful servant. You have been faithful in handling this small amount.
Yeah.
So now I will give to you many more responsibilities. So let's celebrate together.
Yes.
I love that part.
Me too. Let's celebrate together. And let's not be called lazy, like like in verse 26, right? Because one says, you evil, lazy servant.
Yeah, we don't want that.
We don't want that one, right? But it's kind of like, what have you done with what I've given you? Have you just slept on it? You just let it sit there in the dirt? So that's good. And so going into verse 20, no, not 21, 31. This one is one of Eric's favorite. I gotta give him his shout outs because he's not on this week, but this is one of his favorite explanations of what's going to happen at the end of times, right? Where the angels are going to come with Jesus, and he's going to separate the sheep from the goats. Right? Where he's asking us, don't worry about trying to figure out who's who, because I know we get really caught up in who am I supposed to be sowing into, Lord? Like, is this somebody who's good soil? Is this somebody who is, going to benefit your kingdom? Is somebody who's going to heaven? Like, is this my labor going in vain or not? And he really does say, come everyone, bring everyone in. And I will sort them out later on. Yeah.
Our part is to go and tell the good news. Wherever it lands, that's God's part. And then he'll bring somebody else. Or like I said, we plant a seed, right? Somebody else come behind and water it. But God's the one that gives the increase. But it's not for us to determine who to speak to. And when we see people, we can't judge by the outward man. God looks at the heart. And we're sowing seeds of the heart by sharing the good news. And that's what the gospel is all about, the good news.
Yeah, absolutely. Just sharing it. And I love though that he goes from, like you said, that good news part, and just he's going to separate the good and the bad, and who's who later on. But then gives us this charge to take care of everyone, right? Because they say come you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you for the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty. This is verse 35. And you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you took me in. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you took care of me. I was in prison, and you visited me. Then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and take you in, or without clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and visit you? And the king will answer them, truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. And so that is like, this has been a mission on Eric and I's heart for sure, where it's like doing for others, especially in this way, it's so countercultural sometimes for us, especially in America, but it's taking care of God, right? Like when we take care of his people, we are taking care of him, right? And it's like when we give to people who are needy, right? When we take people into our homes, which is a hard thing.
Y'all have done many times.
Right? And not even just people we know or like, not just like family members who are struggling, like strangers.
No, strangers y'all have taken in.
Like straight up strangers. And that, the Lord had to prime my heart for some years of it. But yeah, but really, and so it's so funny because when the kids started asking us about like, Christmas and stuff like that, what are we gonna give Christmas? I said, hold on, first of all, you don't show up at somebody's birthday party asking for gifts, for one. It's Jesus' birthday. But for two, they were like, well, what would Jesus want for his birthday? And I was like, well, let's look at Matthew 25, right? Like Matthew 25 will show you what the Lord wants.
Yeah.
How do we take good care of Jesus? Like how do we give him a gift that he would be grateful to have, right? And so for like even this Christmas season coming up, like I think this is something that we really as a family are trying to take on is like, well, how do we feed those, give those who are thirsty a drink, right? Like how do we clothe people? How do we take them in if we need to take them in, visit them in prison? Like how do we do all these things as if we were doing it for Jesus himself?
Yeah.
It's such a challenge. It is, but it's what he desires here. It's what he really desires for us, because he said in the king will ask him, she said, truly I'll tell you, whatever you did for the least of them, you done for me. He said, then I'll also say though. So I'll also say to those on the left, depart from me, you who are cursed, in the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty, you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, and you didn't take me in. I was naked, and you didn't clothe me. Sick and in prison, and you didn't take care of me. And like this is what we saw Jesus come and do, though.
Yeah.
Like when he walked this earth, he took care of like all these people.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
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 And I hope that you can say that, as you grew up, we kind of did a lot of this, which is why you and Eric have really kind of taken it to a different level. But I mean, we always had people coming in.
Yeah, we did
too.
We did.
We would take in youth, and we have some family, but a lot of people we didn't know.
Yeah.
And so when I see you and Eric do that, it's just I thank God that we were able to again give you that example.
Yeah.
To where now you're in a place where it's just you guys are without family here, and able to again be a community with your church, online and in person.
Yeah.
And take on some of these areas that you guys minister to, because that's really what the gospel's all about.
Yeah.
And even I see myself now, just even at the church I'm at, where we have a great outreach ministry, that does a lot of this kind of work. And it's just good to see that, again, we're a part of a church that is doing the work.
Yeah.
We're being the hands and feet of Jesus.
That part.
That's the way I always explain it. Especially to the children when I'm teaching them. No, you are the hand and feet of Jesus.
Yes.
And so the words that you speak life and encouragement to your friends.
Yes.
Because sometimes you may be the only Jesus they ever see.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this, if the church looked and did more of this on a Monday through Saturday,
Exactly.
you know, this, maybe the world could see who Jesus is, right? A little bit more. Like, they would know God by the way that we love. Right? And so this is that love factor that we want to instill. So it's a challenge for me. It's still a challenge, right? It's still a challenge for you. And pray that it challenged you as well, that that the Lord spoke here, and that we just take up our cross, die to ourselves and our wants and desires, and do what God has asked us to do, and to take care of his people, take care of the needy. But
in chapter 25, if you can get that in your spirit, God bless you.
All right, well, thank you for joining us, and we just hope to see you tomorrow.
Yeah.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us for the Vibes Daily Podcast. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, or download our favorite, the Vibes Church app. Visit vibes.church/devoted for additional episodes, notes, details, and the latest merch. Join us next time as we continue our journey through the Bible. Take good care.